Hi, this is Kat, and welcome back to my channel. So for today's video, I am going to talk about my favorite sci-fi slash fantasy books. Now, I am not a big sci-fi or fantasy reader. Nevertheless, all the books that I've talked about are ones that I've really enjoyed. So let's get started. Right now, I have only two of I think it's 9 books. I only have 2 of the 9 books. Some of these were lent out or just borrowed, and so I'll just put up pictures like I normally do. But I don't have a particular order of just the books. I only think I have one sci-fi book, and I'll mention what that one is, but most of these are fantasy. So we'll start, I guess, with the retellings first, just because that's the books that I have. So the first book I want to talk about is Dust by Kara Swanson, and this is a Peter Pan retelling. The premise goes that there is this girl named Claire, and she's looking for her twin brother, and basically she finds that there's secrets around it, and things are pointing towards London. And at the same time, you have Peter Pan, who is basically the other point of view in this book, and you find out that he is stuck in London and he is trying to get to Neverland, so they have to team up. This is a YA story, so it has a lot of those elements in there. And I will say that I have a lot more thoughts that I will put in at my wrap up, but essentially this is a good, clean book. Actually, all the ones that I'm going to talk about are pretty much clean, like good, clean books. So, yeah, I think that's all I'm going to say right now about the premise, but I really did enjoy this retelling. I've only read one other retelling of Peter Pan, and that one I didn't like so much, but this one was interesting enough, and it followed close to the Disney movie, but I guess I would say there are some darker elements than what the Disney movie had, so just be aware of that. But I thought this was a great read, and I will pick up the second book whenever that time comes. So this is one of 2 books. The second book that I want to talk about is So This Is Love, and this is by Elizabeth Lim. And this book is a Cinderella, retelling. I don't remember what the question was. I think is, what if Cinderella never went to the ball or wore the glass slipper, but it's on the cover. But this book has, Cinderella, and, she doesn't make it to the ball. She doesn't put on the glass slipper. And so it talks about like the aftermath of, I guess, where we left off in the Disney movie, from the night of the ball. And I loved that this book was also clean. It had magical elements into it, and that was mostly through the fairy godmother and just mentioning of magical beings within the kingdom. But it didn't, in my opinion, get to like witchcraft at all. So that was a plus for me, especially with these twisted tale books. Sometimes you don't realize that it goes dark or gets into that until like halfway through the books. So that's why I've kind of DNF'd a lot of them. But this one I would say is pretty good. There's twists and turns in it, and I enjoyed it. So I would recommend this one. The next book I will recommend is Conceal, Don't Feel, and this is by Jen Kolanita. So for those who don't know, the Twisted Tale series are written by multiple authors, and I found that I really like Jen Kolanita's style writing the best. This one is basically the Frozen story, and it's what if Anna and Elsa never knew each other? And this story, follows again closely towards the Disney movie, but it talks about as if Anna and Elsa grew up from children to where they are in adults, as only children, and one is living at the castle and the other one is living with a normal family within the kingdom, and the story ensues from there. I loved the dynamic of the characters themselves with their own families. I like a good sister book, so I guess it's, without giving a lot away, the magical elements, again, not witchcrafty, it's clean, on point. It could get predictable, but nonetheless, if you want an easy, clean, fun read, this I would also recommend. The next book is Frozen 2 Dangerous Secrets, and this is by Mary Mancusi, I think is how you say the name. This one follows Prince Agnar and Iduna's story, and these are the parents to Anna and Elsa, and this is kind of like the prequel to Frozen, and it brings elements of Frozen 2 into it. So the book does start off with, I guess, in between, like in timeline, it starts off in between Frozen 1 and 2, but then you get like this backstory, and I thought it was really cute just seeing how the writer tied in Frozen 2, the movie, and Frozen 1 together, and then we get like the story of the parents and their personalities, their ambitions, their life beforehand. And I think the author of, or the writer of Frozen 1 and 2 basically said that this was like a prequel, but I just remember my sister mentioning it. But it's definitely something that maybe Disney might make a movie of. I don't know. That's just me guessing, but it does follow that timeline of the Disney movie. The romance in this one, it was clean. There were some moments that maybe like the kissing scenes might be a little intense, but it wasn't like make out. I don't remember. I think that's as spicy as it gets. So this one's a great read too. Okay, these next two books are by the same author, and I know this one that's coming up is a hit or miss with some people, but I actually really enjoyed it. This is Fox, and this one is by Nadine Brandeis, and I know that this has been a hit or miss on BookTube, but I actually really liked it, and I think I liked it a lot because I didn't know the Guy Fawkes story previously to reading this book, and so I was basically reading it without like an idea of the Guy Fawkes story. And so this book is about a boy named Thomas, and he basically wants this mask that every child gets at a certain ceremony, and it can only be crafted by the father of the family. And so he basically wants, and it tells you early on that he hadn't seen his father in a long time. So he's hoping to get this mask, and the mask essentially pairs with a color, and they learn like this color speech, and they learn about all the different colors, and once it's paired with a color, it's like you could control that color. So the magic system, I'm not gonna lie, is a little weird and wonky, but I guess I kind of understood the premise. So there's also this plot going on, and Thomas has to decide if he's going to take part of it or not. And the story, you know, kind of ensues from there. So I know that this author, she tries to use the fantasy and use it as allegories and as Christian allegories. And there are some things that are very like apparent, like, oh, this is an allegory for this, or this is the symbolism for this. And then there are some where you're like, I'm not really sure. So I guess I could see like the confusion and maybe lower ratings on this. But I, for one, really liked it. I like the concept. I like trying to figure out the allegories or the symbolism. And I loved hearing the Guy Fawkes story for the first time. So I think there's also like in the back a little bit about her research. Yeah, she puts what's true and what's stretched. And again, I really like it when an author does that. It just makes it easier to know like what is true and what's not, instead of having to like research it, unless you want to research it. But I like that it's put out here in the books, because sometimes not a lot of, you know, teenagers will like look up what's true and what's not. And this is geared towards like a YA audience. So I really appreciate that from her. The other one by her is Wistress, and I previously just raved about this book last month, but essentially you get the same thing with the Christian allegories and a different color or a different magic system. And this one is all about a girl who basically can grant wishes by crying. So like a single tear will grant a wish, but it's like you have to be careful with the wishes and everything. And basically her last tear could cause her to die, and you're trying to figure out what happened and why that is. And there's a lot of talk about talents and using your talents for good, or using another term in there was banes, and so using them, and those are really a negative way to use I guess the things that you're gifted with. So again, really interesting. I loved the audiobook. I liked hearing two perspectives, one from the Wistress, the girl, and the other one from another character. So yeah, that one was a great one, and I know like that one's been a favorite, so I would agree with everyone there. Okay, this one is a I guess a series, and this is part of the Giver series. So you have The Giver, you have Messenger, Sun, and Gathering Blue. And these are all, like I said, part of the Giver series. The famous one that's out there is the third book chronologically within the series, and that's The Giver. But I did read all of them, and I can see why The Giver was the best one, but I liked the backstory or the sequels to it, and then I liked hearing like what happened in the end, because The Giver does leave on a cliffhanger, and so the fourth book pretty much like wraps it all up nicely. The Giver is basically this dystopian society where everyone has no memory of pain. They don't have, I guess, the natural human feelings such as love or jealousy or like extreme sadness. I think there's a level of like contentment or maybe irritability, but not like the strong emotions. And so, you know, they're living in like this perfect world, and everyone has basically assigned families and jobs, and every year you're celebrated with a special like gift. So in the society, you only have one giver, and this is the person who basically takes on everything. And what I mean by that is like they store the memories, they store the emotions all within a person, and this is called the giver. So you have this society who is made that certain way because one person is that vessel that holds it all. And so you meet Jonas, and this boy basically is in line to be the next giver. And the story basically ensues from there to see like what happens. And I'm gonna leave it at that. I know it's a popular book. I know that they have a movie, and I really did like the movie of it. The prequels to it basically sets the stage a little bit for The Giver, but I would say that you could read The Giver as a standalone. Just the prequels just are an extra bit of fun if you like the world, or you want to know I guess a little bit more about like how society was before this world. And then at the last book, Sun does wrap it up in a nice bow. But again, you don't have to read Sun to enjoy The Giver. Okay, and the next one is The Hobbit. And The Hobbit, again, great movie. A lot of people know about The Hobbit, but I thought I would just add it in there. You know, it's about a hobbit and his adventure, essentially. And this is the only book I've read by Tolkien. I haven't read the Lord of the Rings trilogy. I'm a little nervous to do that. I'll probably listen to it on audiobook one day, but I do enjoy the movies, and I did enjoy The Hobbit, though it was a tough read when I first read it. Anyway, I would recommend The Hobbit. And the last book that I will mention today is a science fiction book, and that is Project Hail Mary by Andy Weir. I loved this book. It was funny. It was very intriguing. I can't give a lot away. Just know that it's about a man who wakes up in space and he doesn't know what his name is, how he got there, and why he's even there. So I would suggest to go in a little blind with that book. There is, I think, maybe one word that I can remember that was like a curse word. But for the most part, I believe it was clean. And I do also remember that there was a scene within the book where it does talk about some consensual sexual relationship, but it was brief and it didn't go into details. And so I'll just kind of put that one out there. But other than that, I really enjoyed the humor with it. And this one definitely was cleaner than The Martian, which I also read. The Martian was had a lot of cursing in every chapter. So these were all the sci-fi slash fantasy books that I've read. A lot of them were popular and you probably heard before, and others may not have. But yeah, I'm curious about any more sci-fi books out there. It's easy to find fantasy books, but sci-fi books are pretty hard for me to find. So if you have any recommendations, I'd love to know. Currently, I know C.S. Lewis has written some sci-fi trilogies that I'm looking at. I've heard of others like Skyward by Brandon Sanderson, but as far as that, I haven't really heard much about like sci-fi books. So if you have any recommendations, I'd love to know. And I will see you guys in my next video. Bye.